Thanks for tuning in to this episode of I Have Something to Say, where subject matter experts are unafraid and unapologetic about sharing their perspectives regarding issues that impact our lives. They speak up because basically they give a shit. So if you're tired of canned answers and want to finally hear real people cut through the BS and talk about real issues, this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Sami Heyman Marrero from Urbender, and behind our mixer is our producer, Chris Majoka from UdoU. Hey everyone, we're so excited. I'm really excited because I'm co-hosting today with Chris. Hi, Chris.
Hello, everybody.
And today we have a dynamic duo. I mean, this couple is beyond fierce. We have Joshua Walker. How are you, Joshua? And Emily Walker. How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
And it's really fantastic because they Joshua, first off, is the tech dev, right? You're in the tech industry and in that entire world that really doesn't have a lot of representation of communities of color. And so I think that it's great that after serving our country, thank you for your service. You're an Army vet. Thank you for your service. You went into the tech world and became very accomplished in that arena, and that you and Emily have this interest in this deep dive and advocacy in the diversity, equity, inclusion space too, because I know, Emily, that you're a data-driven marketing professional, that you're all about also internet marketing, and you're very heavy into technology and to tech enabled, right? Business development, but that you're also extremely empathetic, and you're data driven and very analytical, and so you combine those two superpowers to really be able to affect change in the community. And so I'm just excited to have you with us, with Chris and I. And thanks, Chris, for the introduction, because I know that Joshua, you were talking just a little bit ago about the book that you've published, right? Venti Fried Chicken. And so I just want to, explore, right? How did you land into writing this? How you guys met, because I know that you work, very closely together. And what do you see in terms of upcoming change, which we hope, right? We're kind of seeing it a little bit, right? In the corporate landscape, particularly with regards to not only just talking diversity and equity, but also implementation, right? In the everyday life cycle of business, large and small.
So the reason I wrote the book really was because I'm a founder of Black Orlando Tech, which is like a diversity nonprofit that's been around for 4+ years now. I've been a 501c3 for around a little bit more than a year now. But at the time, I was like, I basically was giving one-on-one advice to a bunch of people. And as we know, as humans, we don't scale well. So I was like, how do I bottle all of my life experience into a short and easy and like lighthearted read? And that's kind of where it was born. So it was sometimes agonizing. Well, the writing actually was fun, but I guess the human like publishing part isn't as fun, but I really enjoyed it. So,
That's awesome.
That's great. And so that title, Venti Fried Chicken, where does it stem from?
So it stems from just really the always like things that are like a juxtaposition of themselves. So as the story goes, I was at my grandma's house. I forget for what reason, because she lives up north. But our ritual there is like we usually jump in someone else's car because they won't let you rent a car if you're in like a Black family. They're like, no, there's plenty of people that can take you where you need to go, that type of thing. So we went to Starbucks since we're addicted to it. I mean, to be honest. And from the night before, there was leftover fried chicken, and at the time, I think I was on like keto, and I was like, well, this is like blasphemy, but but then at grandma's house, there's like no rules, and if you tell them you're dieting, they're like, here's some bread, you know. So
Yeah.
so I ended up having the Starbucks and like the fried chicken, and I was like, this is representative of who I am, as far as like staying true to being like a proud urban black man and being kind of on the bleeding edge of technology as well. So
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And in your experience, because you do internet marketing and Emily, and I know that that's something that's kind of new for you know when I say new, it's like in the last 10 years. Let's just be real. It was all about
Right.
traditional media, and
Mhm.
so anything that was 10 years forward, is kind of new. And so how do you see internet marketing and technology being able to advance the causes of minority groups, which is now becoming the minority majority, but people that are disenfranchised and marginalized and don't have equal access to the resources they need to be able to live a life of equitable access to again the resources that they need to reach social mobility.
That's a really great question. So, in consideration of reaching our minority communities, and like you said, it's hard to have equal access, and how do you reach someone if they don't even have the ability to get online in the first place, right?
Right.
Um, so it's a matter of, continuing to, in my opinion, be in the community, to discuss with those of where to get access first,
Hmm.
right? So um, teaching those communities where to go for the free access, like the library or
Hmm.
other particular resources where it's accessible, and teaching them that you can also transition your career through those access points, that there's plenty of free certifications, that there's plenty of free resources. The libraries tend to have free classes, where people can gain those tools and experiences still and be able to make that transition as technology relates to the future. So
Hmm.
obviously you can't internet market to someone who doesn't even have access, right?
Right.
But in respect to the people who are online and do have access, it's a matter of being a voice in the room
Hmm.
for that content, to make sure that that content reads, that everyone can understand it, to make sure that there is a um, that the imagery is there, right? To make sure
Hmm.
that we are represented in the imagery of the content as well, and to make sure that like there's plenty of laws out there as far as financial predatory is concerned, but I'm in the finance industry, so making
Hmm.
sure that we're not being predatory to our minority communities as well,
Hmm.
in regards to what we have to offer, and also trying to make sure that those previous situations with everything that goes in regards to lending and
Hmm.
those aspects, that people are not ignored simply by the basis of their skin tone, whether
Hmm.
that's mortgage lending, or a credit card, to make sure that people aren't noticed by that. So in a way that helps, that can help the minority communities when it comes to applying online, because no one
Hmm.
can see you in that, right? They see your name, they see your address, they see, and they're going solely based off of that information.
Hmm.
So in a lot of ways, digital marketing can actually help the minority communities from a financial standpoint when you look at it that way.
Right, because it eliminates that interfacing in a way that
Right.
is so packed with bias, right? It's
Right,
so
exactly. You can't make that decision based on that bias that the person is
yeah,
in front of you. You have to go by the data that's in front of you. So
exactly.
that is a method of, bonus in that
Yeah.
aspect.
Yeah, totally. And so you both worked in the corporate sector and then transitioned into entrepreneurship, right? How
oh,
how
I
Where
could.
we're actually both in both sectors.
Yeah.
It's complicated.
You're both in both sectors. Oh
Yep.
my goodness. So
Mhm.
so you're
Yeah, we have like 6 jobs like
Yeah.
between us. So, yeah.
that is awesome. How do you do it? First off, how did you meet and how long have you been together? Because it's the only way, right, that works if you've been together for a long time.
Yeah, we have this June we have been married 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um
Congrats.
thank
Yeah.
you. We met from a his cousin. I went to high school with his cousin, and we met through his
Okay.
cousin at a New Year's party. And we became friends, and
Yeah.
we like to joke that we're like one of the first internet couples, and that he slid into my DMs on MySpace. So that's our ongoing joke. But
Yeah.
it's true.
It was the real DM. Like these kids are spoiled. Where now it's like real time. Where
Yeah.
it was basically an email box just on my
Exactly. There was no chat back and forth. But we were friends, and we just found ourselves complaining about the same thing about the opposite sex to each other.
Yeah.
And he was deployed to Iraq, and
Yeah, at the time.
at the time, and he basically said, I would date you to marry you. And
Mm.
and in that moment and in that space, God had to whisper that in his ear, because I was not hearing it from anyone. I didn't want anything from anyone. I didn't want to deal with men. I just wanted to be by myself and with my friends. And I was very much in a before it was popular, where women took time for themselves and separated and reevaluated and healed. That's where I was in that space.
Yeah.
So I just kind of cocked my head to the side, not that he could see it, and I was like, "Oh, he's coming strong." Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, "All right, I guess I have to evaluate this, because we are, got some things
Have to
about
analyze this, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was already analyzing. I was like, "Oh, okay, well, we need to talk about this." Um, so what happened was, we actually did things very backwards from what everyone else does. We prepared for marriage. He was hooked up with the considered the best army chaplain.
Which is like the army's priest.
Yeah, and I had a pastor here, and on both ends, they were kind of helping us, asking us questions, and we talked about everything from future life goals to children, to who's gonna clean the house, and don't lie. Like, what do you want to do? It? Don't lie. Don't tell me that you're gonna do it. Like, and so we conceded on, I do dishes and he cleans bathrooms. And I mean, not to say that if obviously if someone's sick or whatever,
Yeah, it's not an
it's
absolute.
not an absolute, but majority of the time, we've held true to that. To this day. So, and then we dated after. Well, we got married, and then we dated while we were married, basically. After he got back, just 6 months later.
Yeah.
Oh wow,
Mhm.
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
so we never actually dated. We married 3 weeks after he got back.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Mhm.
And but then you both were comfortable in that technology space, which I think makes for a great partnership in terms of like work output, right? you know,
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
you have that to share. But also, what's awesome, just hearing you guys speak and just knowing. That you work in technology is that you're, within one household, you're really modeling, right, what it is to be able to live in the future, right, of where we're going in terms of economic opportunities, and it's in the tech environment. Now, I know that you mentioned libraries, and I love that, because they're walking distance from people's homes,
Mhm.
Right.
for the most part, and like you say, they're properly funded. They probably have like a computer room, and they have
Mhm.
classes, and they have programming that can really help support, learning tech.
Yeah, they're actually really a big part of our story, and that's why I mentioned them. Is
Yeah.
because we were homeless at one time, and we have had to use libraries,
Yeah.
access computers, for honestly, for claiming my weeks on unemployment,
Mhm.
for a
Yeah.
variety of things. So it's not like we're suggesting these things and don't know. Like
Yeah,
we've actually been there and done that. We've used later on down the line where maybe we've had a laptop and we've had to use free Wi-Fi at Starbucks and McDonald's.
yeah.
Mhm.
So that's all a part of our story. So we're not just
Yeah.
saying it just, oh, well, that's no, we've done it.
So
Yeah.
Starbucks been
Yeah.
supporting me for a while now.
Yeah, Starbucks has, we have to get back because when we had nothing, we were giving them free Wi-Fi.
They should just hand over the key, right?
Yeah.
And that way,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we should owe some part,
They should sponsor us for
something,
real.
We'll have to email this podcast episode to a couple of people.
yes, exactly. Exactly. And to my friend, I have a good friend that she just accepted a job as the director for the entire library system in Brevard
Awesome.
County. Right here.
So-
You're in Florida, right? Are you located in
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're in
Florida?
North County.
Yeah.
Perfect. I could put you in touch with Wendy. I'm gonna do that. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, that'd
because
be great.
these,
Yeah.
these are the types of synergies that make sense. And the thing
Yeah.
is, there are a lot of corporations bringing it back now, right? Tying it back
Right.
into the corporations that they claim that they can't find talent or they can't find people, right? In X, Y, or Z, but they're there. They're just in the grind.
Yep.
Just
Yeah,
doing the work,
sure.
and then
Mhm.
it really also behooves them to invest in creating a pipeline.
Yeah.
Because the future of work is Black and brown communities. I mean, it just
Right.
is, and I think the tipping point is in 2032. That's just 11 years from now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
that's not very
majority
long.
of American workers are going to be either Black or brown. So
Yep.
it's something to take into consideration. I don't think it's happening fast enough. And so is that a concern that you have, as you work in this
Um,
space, that the growth of AI and technology, and that gap that currently exists, that's like the Grand Canyon, right? That
Yeah.
do you see any change or any promising indicators that we stand a chance to stand on top of the mountain, and be actually part of the future economy.
Well, that's where we're different too. Like we're on both sides of the fence where we're entrepreneurs, but we also work for big corporate places. And I work for one of the big four consulting agencies, and it's being the same person on both sides. Like I my quote is that the Josh you meet at 3 p.m. is the one you meet at 3 a.m. So I think I've been in the DEI space corporately is really just being more real. Like I remember when they approached me about being a part of DEI, I was like, you realize I'm going to be like the same person, right? Like I'm not going to be like a rinsed down version. And they said, yeah, we want that. And so I think that's what we need is we need to be kind of bold in the workplace when Black people were getting murdered at a mass rate last year during like all the civil unrest. Like I was the first one during like a big call to be like, let's address that like Black Americans or minorities are dealing with this and they shouldn't have to like tuck in their feelings while they're at work.
Yeah.
It's not fair for you to have to deal with that and have to be a high performer. So how are you going to deal with this in a practical way? So I think it's those little actions of it's really being an accountability for wherever you're at. So I know
Right.
you have.
Yeah. So to counteract that, on my end in the corporate world, my company did not have a DEI any initiative whatsoever. And so the response to that same time frame that came from everything was so vague and downright inappropriate, to be quite
Mhm.
honest. And so myself and a colleague of mine, who ironically it's crazy how small things happen. I actually went to high school with her as well, and we've become really great friends. But we had to have that real conversation with our HR. And we said, hey guys, you guys are completely tone deaf right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have a very for as per many companies, we have large diversity from the bottom,
Mhm.
not necessarily in management or senior leadership, but there's a very large, diverse bottom.
Mhm.
And there's, your main workforces that are having to be customer facing right now are suffering. We are hurting and we need to do something about it.
Mhm.
So what happened was we started to have those discussions and internally throughout the whole entire company, we divided it up across 2 days.
Mhm.
And it really was very eye-opening for a lot of the other non-minorities
Mhm.
to find out how people were feeling, the things that they've experienced as far as police brutality, and everyday real fears that we carry on as minorities in regards
Mhm.
to policing and coming to work with a smile on your face, even though you're dealing with children being called disrespectful racial slurs in school,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and on and on and on. And so um it started out on a weekly discussion and then minimized gradually to bi-weekly and
Mhm.
monthly discussions, and it has completely opened up a lot of eyes to have
Mhm.
these real discussions. And we joke about people shying away from these discussions, but I can tell you that it has been the times where we've done celebration type
Mhm. Yeah.
discussion. People have fun, but they are not as engaged, and they are so much happier to actually have the tough discussion.
Mhm.
We had half of our workforce attend our last DEI on their
Wow.
own willingly
Wow.
because of
Wow.
these hard discussions. And that is where you see the true difference when
Yeah.
you're looking at hiring employees internally, and when the way our employees treat each other and the way that employees treat their members.
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
very much credit union talking right now, members. But it has made it such a huge difference in our net promoter score, where it has, our employees, the way that they treat our members, it went from 45 to 67 in a year because of,
Wow.
and I believe fully and completely it's because of the way that we have addressed things. And then on the internal side for our employee engagement, it went up a good same 20 points easily.
Mhm.
So it has made such a difference in our working environment, the way that people treat and respect each other.
Yeah.
Uh,
Absolutely. And it's that
uh,
human to human connection, right? You want to promote.
Right, exactly. And people have asked, you respectfully have asked questions with that we feel that they wouldn't normally ask.
Mhm.
To say it in such a manner, um, they felt a level of vulnerability and comfort to be able to
Mhm.
say, "Hey, I grew up this way, and I'm sorry, I don't know. Can you please explain it to me?"
Mhm.
And that's those were the questions, and there was so many aha moments of, "Wow, I didn't know it was really still like this." That was
Mhm.
typically the still within that. I didn't it was still like this. A lot of people have an idea that things are so much better, and it's not a thing anymore. Which
uh,
obviously is lines with
and I'll just add to that. From just my observing of Emily and Josh. So I worked with Emily for a period of time and went out and filmed Josh's book signing and everything for Venti Fried Chicken. So I've gotten to know them and their story a lot. And what I think it really does take, and you two are examples of it, and some EU as well, but people who do have one foot on the corporate end, but also one foot in the community.
yeah,
And you can't have just the corporate side. One of my big issues with certain initiatives for diversity and things that I've worked on in the past were that you can have diversity, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're inclusive. And so if you're trying to diversify a board in a nonprofit or diversify your staff, if you're only selecting people who are C-suite executives already, then they're not necessarily
Mhm.
representative of that community. They're just,
Mhm.
the skin
right,
color or speak the language. And I think to really have change, you have to know what is happening in that community. So, kudos to you guys for, juggling the corporate world, but also, the Black Orlando Tech events and things like that. Emily's work in the arts community really kind of showcases that they're bringing knowledge into the corporate world from their own experience and from what's actually happening and with a pulse on the community. So,
Yeah.
I would just add to that you have to have that inclusivity part of actually knowing what is happening on the other side of that fence.
Yeah.
And it's also remaining grounded and empathetic to remembering how we grew up, where we've been even as a married couple from homelessness to now. It's really important. A lot of people lose sight of that, and they lose sight of, they gain, a few dollars and they forget, what that struggle looks like. So there's always a part of us that's always reaching back to the community, that's always willing to help someone who wants to be helped, right? Because there you do have to have a level of wanting to be helped and to do the work.
Yeah.
And so we're always willing to provide the information, and then if they ask questions, hey, we're here. We answer the questions. We take the time.
Yeah.
Um, but it is also on the person to do the work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that's I think you're the first people I've met that have a foot in corporate, have a foot in the nonprofit grassroots sector, and then also are entrepreneurs. Like, how in the world do you how do you do it? Oh, I know, with difficulty. You do it with difficulty.
Well, the good thing is, and Black Orlando Tech knows, like, we're in the situation where if I worked hard, I could bridge over, but I don't want to, because I think the real influence is being in both places at once. But now I'm even at a spot where my corporate gig is working with bot, and it's like I can't do that if I'm on one side or the other.
Right.
And so I it's a balancing act, but I can't say. I think a lot of times for minorities, you get the story of like it's all or nothing, where
Right.
we tell people all the time, it's like, yeah, you do what works for you. Like, not everyone has to eat ramen I ate ramen most of my life, but you don't have to eat ramen to be the next success.
Not the fancy ramen, not the
Right.
I said, don't. Yeah, exactly.
Can we talk about how we were so clueless when I first ate real ramen? I thought they had gentrified ramen. I was like, oh no, this was a thing the whole time. Oh, that's crazy.
Exactly.
That's what happens to my kids. Yeah. They know where to go. If I'm like too busy, I'm like, go get it. Yeah, they know how to prepare it too. Wait till they go to a real,
Right, exactly.
It's over. But
And then find out there's like veggies and meat and ramen.
Exactly. I think that's fantastic. Because because you have that ability, right, of bringing in the equity lens.
Yes.
The equity lens to everything, to approaching conversations, to marketing materials, to hiring processes, to, it's like I say, the 4 buckets, right? And any organization, whether you're a nonprofit, a for-profit, or government entity, which there's nothing else in between, right? Either you're a for-profit, nonprofit, or government entity, has those 4 buckets, which is your workforce internally, that you need to make sure that they're constantly learning and evolving and right? And becoming more cohesive. So that way you can, how do you say, Lakeisha always says, low lift, high impact, so that way it's easy, more easy, right?
Right.
And then externally with your consumers or the end user of your products or services, and then obviously your diverse suppliers or the business community that you're surrounded with, right? And have good business relationship with your peers, parting from a place of abundance instead of scarcity. And then last but not least, with the very community that we come from too, not lose sight, because don't you hate that because at least I do, when people in our community all of a sudden reach a certain level of
Mhm.
influence and affluence, and then all of a sudden it's like they become the problem. They
Yeah.
become the
Yeah.
Yeah,
problem.
like so with COVID, you know, we're well aware that there's so many people in our community that have lost their jobs,
Mhm.
right? Because we're in a very large community that has theme parks, hospitality as their, main focus for their work. And so there's a church not far from our house that does a food drive every Saturday. And I have never seen such a long car line in all my life for
Consistently for like,
consistently
yeah.
for months. And it burdens our hearts so much to see it.
Mhm.
Like we are just like, oh my God, like there's so many people hurting.
Mhm.
And we're like, wow, and we just it takes us back to a time of remembering, of needing that food and being grateful and thankful for where we are, but always coming back to giving back to the community. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, because for the recession, we were on the other end where, like, so we remember how that felt. And for something this drastic to happen across the world, and
Yeah.
you're more inconvenienced than affected, and you're like,
Yeah.
I want somebody else to have that same stability. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
I,
totally. No, and I totally get that. That happened to us
yeah,
too. Yeah. I lost my job and my husband too during the 2008 recession.
yeah, it was bad.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah,
and that's why we went the path of entrepreneurship. So I totally get it. Like I almost lost my house last time. So
Mhm.
when,
yeah.
that's the thing, right? Is being able to be present, and pause and take time for others, to help
Mhm.
them cope.
Mhm.
And I actually just got a call. So my sis, and that's the thing too. It's like that extended family. I just got a call from my
Mhm.
sister um yesterday, and she tells me, hey, my boss has a good friend that just lost her job. She's been working at this company for years. It's the first time she's unemployed, and she's basically freaking out, right? And she's
Yeah,
Latina, and she thought, maybe you could, because she's thinking of going the route of entrepreneurship, and so been there, done
yeah,
that, right? 13
right.
years ago. And so I spoke to her, and so I was giving her pointers of, I'm like, absolutely. I mean, if I can help
Mhm.
a sister, you know what I'm saying? Let's do this.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So we got on the phone, and she was asking me questions, I was answering. And I don't want to get emotional, but it was a very poignant moment, because at
Mhm.
the end, she's like, anything else you can think of? She tells me, please call me, and let me know. And I say, yeah, you can reach out anytime too. And I said, but I do have one more thing to tell you. And she's like, what's that? And I know she was taking notes and I said, it's gonna be okay. You're gonna be okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You
yeah,
know? And
yeah,
and you could feel it. You could feel the energy.
yeah,
Look, I'm getting chills just
yeah.
talking about
I'm
it.
like feeling it too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, because that's the thing. People need to know, that our communities are survivors.
yeah,
Mhm.
Like
exactly.
this, we had issues, and we have been living disparities way before the pandemic came in, and
Mhm.
so people
Yeah.
throw this word resiliency around. No, it's survival.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a difference.
exactly,
Yeah, we realize speaking of survival, that's a topic that we talk about often,
Mhm.
yeah.
and how we didn't realize our traumas. Well, like we knew that they were there, but we didn't really
Mm-hmm.
deal with them until
Mm-hmm.
like we were more stable.
Mhm.
Like because you don't have time to
Yeah.
deal with it, to think
Yes.
about it. You
Yeah.
don't have time to heal. So like you're carrying around all of this depression and anxiety and anger,
Mm-hmm.
these things that happened to you when you were a kid, but
Mm-hmm.
but you can't even deal with it. You can't even
Yeah.
begin to heal or become like a full person to like really and truly know the joy of happiness because you're so worried about eating
Yep.
or
Yeah,
keeping a roof over your head.
exactly. Yeah.
And so like we just had that moment of, oh wow, like with
Yeah.
survival. That's literally what it is. You're always
Mm-hmm.
in survival mode, and
Yeah.
it's not a way to live.
One of the good things though is when you come from nothing, like you have tougher skin. So I
Yeah.
think in corporate where I see people get bent out of shape so quickly, and you're just like, nah, it could be worse. It has been worse, you know?
It's hilarious what people get upset about, and you're like,
Yeah.
"What the fuck?" Okay.
Yeah,
I'm like, they're still paying you? All right,
Right. You have a job, you're still getting a check, you have insurance. What are you complaining about?
yeah. Well,
Perspective. Yeah.
this has been fantastic. Any advice you want to give, people? It doesn't have to be youth. There are a lot of people also
Yeah.
that, are 50 plus or whatever, like me, that
Uh,
if
right.
I
Well,
put myself without a job today, I'd be freaking out, especially with technology, because I'm a dit. I don't understand
right.
I'm like barely survive, in
Well,
terms
honestly, that's what Black Orlando Tech is about. A lot of people think that it's for kids, but it's not. Black
Mm.
Orlando Tech is all about a community supporting each other as adults. A lot of them may have been in the industry for a very long time, but there's also, it's really has been there and created for minorities as a safe space to learn and to ask
Mhm.
other minorities that are in the tech space of what they should do and for resources to make that career transition, because that career transition can happen anytime. Like we
Mhm.
talked about, we probably had 5 different career paths in our lives already.
Mhm. Yep.
So we become professional at transitioning.
Yeah.
So be encouraged that it doesn't matter how old you are, you can career transition at any age. And I know that there's ageism, and I know that there's, so many things,
Mhm.
but if you only focus on that, then of course you're gonna come up with a fail. And you don't know unless you try. And that's the
Right.
big thing, is try and try for a good amount of
Yeah.
time. Like, we
Mhm.
failed so many times.
Yeah, my advice is just if you're interested in technology, like start today.
Yeah.
Like I think people get in their head and they never make the move. If you're looking where to start, go on LinkedIn, find someone that's in the tech space and just ask them about like what they're doing and what they're enthusiastic about. I think a lot of people see, yeah, I've always been an open door and everyone knows that publicly, but like that's how I got in the industry, was just being open and vulnerable with people and saying like, hey, I don't know much about this, but I'm interested in it. Can you tell me about what you actually do? And then you just start connecting the dots from there, and they'll tell you where to get
Mhm.
resources and all that stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah.
And to add on to that is that tech is not necessarily code. I mean,
yes,
and
oh god,
don't assume that every technology they need project
Look.
managers. There's so many areas. Digital marketing. Yeah, there's some technical aspects to it, but if you understand, the concepts of marketing, then you can apply it and learn the digital marketing aspects.
Mhm.
That's a really easy transition. It's noticing what parallels and what are you good at,
Mhm.
and then there's so many resources, or coding. People get really intimidated by it, but
Yeah.
if you can spend 15 minutes a day
Mhm.
to try to learn it and then grow, and then just as long as you're consistent
Yeah,
and you're determined,
sustained effort. It's like going to the gym.
you can
That's like
you can learn them. You can learn code.
You see?
It's not, it doesn't matter. You can be 50 years old again and learn to code if you want to. It's about the
Yeah.
perseverance and learning how to problem solve, really,
Oh,
is
and
what
I
it
can say, as someone that entered code like later than most people, um,
Mhm.
life experience helps a lot. Like I know so many people that kill it a lot faster than someone that was basically born into computer science, because they
Mm.
have life experience that they have like really strong soft skills, which is a very underrated part of the tech industry. Is like, can
Mm.
you work with people? Can you convey actually what you're working on? Like you need those people for sure.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's awesome. And let's put the corporate sector on the spot too. What can the corporate sector do to help build equitable pathways, right, for more diverse talent to enter the new age, or the future of the workplace,
Mhm.
linked to technology. Mhm.
I think, and Emily can talk about this even more, but I think the real key is letting your people run it. I mean, any DEI situation that's actually pure and actually works means it's ran by the people, period.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, and That is what we have implemented. It is run by the people. It's run by me and, like I said, me and my colleague. But we do have a committee of every shade of the color rainbow on our committee. And we work with HR. We are currently working with HR to come up with better pathways
Mhm.
for those employees to move up within the office and within the corporate environment. So we've yet to see that implemented. So I can't say that it works specifically yet.
Well, it takes
The
time.
concept and the strategy is there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's about intent, and it's about opening your mind and comparing. Would you expect, when you see someone's resume that comes across, you know, would you expect Isabel Rodriguez to have different qualifications than your Mike Smith? And being real about that.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And coming across those biases, because those gatekeepers are real in the HR industry as well, and
Mhm.
they talk about bias all the time, but they don't even realize their own.
Mhm.
Yeah. Mhm.
So having those tough conversations with your HR, if you don't have any diverse HR representatives, it would be really important as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Listen, I feel like we can go on talking for hours and days.
No, we could. We
This
could.
has been really, really great. And I actually need to connect you to a couple of people and initiatives and projects that are taking place, specifically, here in the Southeast region. So you can get plugged into some stuff that we're working on, because I think that you would be a
Yeah.
wonderful asset and resource to
Okay.
BIPOC entrepreneurs across the Southeast region. Yeah, so I think and it would help. It's a mutual relationship. So I think it would be fantastic. So I'm so
Yeah.
excited to have met you. Thank you, Chris.
Absolutely.
For and, and hopefully soon we can go get a latte.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes,
that'd be great.
yes.
A venti style latte,
And
right?
get your shot. Are you getting your shots? Are you getting your shots when it's your turn, or no?
Oh, for sure.
Oh yeah,
I'm
we are
in.
too.
I'm a veteran, so I can actually. I plan on getting my shots next week. So
Okay,
Nice.
fantastic. Yeah.
Whenever I'm available, I'm not like high risk or anything.
Okay.
So
Okay.
whenever.
Whenever it's available to me. So now we're in contact, and Chris, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And so as soon as we all have our shots or our two shots, depending on the one we get, we're having coffee at Starbucks.
yeah,
Sounds good.
And then you give me a copy of the book, or I'll get a copy of the book.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I want it signed. I want your autograph.
Mhm.
For those who can't get coffee with us, where can people find the book?
Oh yes.
VentiFriedChicken.com, and it's on Amazon and Goodreads. So just type in Venti Fried Chicken, very unique name. So hopefully you'll support, the mission. So
Oh, absolutely. So this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna read it, so then we can discuss it. We'll have like a little book club. Yeah.
that'd be great.
That sounds
Yeah.
awesome. Oh, then you can also follow Benny Fried Chicken on all social media. He's definitely become a TikTok star. And so you can also get your small bite size tech information and learn tech
Yeah.
those ways as well, because all of that content is all surrounding
If
around
you want to
tech.
destroy your attention span with me on TikTok.
Yep.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much, guys. And until next time, just know that we'll be in touch, and we'll have you back on the show soon. Okay.
Sounds great.
All right.
Okay. Take
Thank
Thanks
care.
for
you.
having us.
Bye.
This concludes this episode of I Have Something to Say. We want to thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to tell your friends about us. We're on Spotify and iTunes as well. There's more to come next week. And remember, if you have something to say, it's time to speak up.